Good afternoon to all. Ravikant sir, good afternoon.
Good afternoon,
Uh,
sir.
Good afternoon. Uh, Today we have MPC-002 lifespan psychology. Already we have sent the information to all the learners regarding online counseling. Friday we have conducted MPC-005 research methodology. Today we have the MPC-002 lifespan psychology for MA psychology first year. This session from 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock will continue. After that, in between by 3:30, we have 10 to 15 minutes break. Again, sir will continue up to 5 o'clock. Last 15 minutes, we have question and answer session. In between, any doubts are raised, just you can ask one or two questions. Don't continue the question and answer discussion. Question and answer discussion will continue 4:40 to 5 o'clock or 4:45 to 5 o'clock. So this is the information from my side. Dr. Ravikant sir is a deputy director working in the Geetham University. He's uh, completed MSc Psychology, MBA and PhD in Psychology. Currently, he is looking after the placement and psychology activities in the Geetham University. So he has been associated with IGNOU for last 10 to 20, 12 years, and continuously has been taken sessions to our MS psychology students. So students will enjoy his lecture for today program. Definitely you will enjoy. Any queries we will clarify during the 4:40 or 4:45 to 5 o'clock. So 3:30 to 3:45, 15 minutes break in between. So thank you very much, sir, accepting our invitation and taking this session. So thank you once again on behalf of Regional Center Vijayawada.
Thank you, Dr. Prasad Babu, sir. You have been very, very kind enough to invite me frequently for taking up these sessions. I'm grateful to IGNOU Regional Center Vijayawada for empaneling me as the counselor for dealing with these counseling sessions. Um, as Prasad Babu has mentioned, I've been associated with IGNOU Regional Center for almost 10 years. Currently, I'm working in Geetham University, and then I'm very happy that I'm going to have an interaction with you on lifespan psychology, which is very, very close to my heart. I'm sure by the end of this particular session, you'll not just understand the subject per se, but you'll also understand how this particular subject has an impact on the lifespan development of an individual, or whatever we are seeing right now in most people's lives, and what could be the reasons that have triggered people's behaviors or people's thought processes. So this is what I feel you are going to learn today. So before I, share the screen with all of you, I request people, at least few, not everybody. It is very difficult for all of you to have an interactive session with me or introduction session with me. I request a few of you to initiate yourself and then let me know that you're all there waiting for this particular session, and let me know why your interest has been inclined to learning this psychology program. Yeah,
I'll start with myself.
great. Please.
My name is Bhargav. I'm an employee in ADP. I'm a software engineer. So basically, my interest started with a personality disorder with me. I have a borderline personality disorder. So that basically started mm, 2 years back. I mean, I've seen the symptoms of the BPD 2 years back. So now I'm in therapy and I'm taking some sessions and all, medications and all. So I wanted to, go deeper into this subject. I wanted to know all the facts and all the, so I would learn about myself more. Thank you.
Yeah, Bhargav, really appreciate your initiation because it is very rare to find people who come forward and then speak about their mental well-being. So, in fact, there is a lot of stigma that is associated with counseling or psychology or mental health. But in fact, you have today broken the barriers of it, and then you have opened the gates for all others to follow. Really appreciate that. But I'm sure by the end of this particular session, you'll have an idea about how you can deal with your issues that you are facing. Yeah, thank you. Others? Others, please. Yeah, Audrey.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Audrey. I used to be a language teacher and now I'm into language assessments. My passion is understanding early learners, but then as I'm getting older, I see that people are aging in two different ways. One group of people are becoming a worse version of themselves, and the other group is becoming a better version, a more seasoned version of themselves. So I am really interested in both these groups, age groups, because I'm in the seniors age group now. I'm really interested in trying to understand how I can continue to be the positive self that I am, because as I grow older, the issues will definitely crop up. But then I also want to be there for other people's grandchildren, and if I have grandchildren, I want to be there for them too. So I just want to be the best version of myself. That's why I'm taking this course.
Yeah, Audrey, if I have pronounced it properly, not a language expert.
Right.
Uh,
Not
yeah,
an expert,
great.
just an assessment,
Yeah,
just an assessor. Yeah.
excellent. So, Audrey, you mentioned a few important points that I would like to um, echo simultaneously. That there are two versions that we are seeing in the society around us. So, it is not just two versions, there are many versions. And hence, the field of psychology is more exciting and challenging also. And you made some important insights about how people are actually transforming themselves. And you also mentioned something more about the positive side of psychology also. In fact, what is essential nowadays, as far as my understanding that goes, without saying in today's conditions, is psychologists or psychiatrists are not only important for the people who have mental illness, but they are also equally important for the people who are good, normal, healthy also. Because what happens is, practically speaking, we are not crowded with all the good people around us. There are very few good people, and there are many people who are having different opinions, different mannerisms, different thought processes, different way of life. So the the lesser in size people should not be affected by the people, the other side of the people. So, hence, it is equally important for us to safeguard the sample which is assumed to be normal or perceived to be normal. So, the positive psychology that has been initiated by Csikszentmihalyi is something which everybody has to really understand the literal spirit of positive psychology, because it is equally important for us to devote our time, money, and energy in order to educate the normal people in the society as well. I'll just give you a small example so that you can relate it to what I'm trying to speak. Let's take an example in a class of 60. So there might be one or two or three students who may be vulnerable with respect to their psychiatric issues or vulnerable with respect to their mental health issues. So if the student joins the particular class and if at all he gets carried away with the class, and if this class gets carried away with the daily chores, then who will try to observe this vulnerable student? What is he thinking, or what is she thinking? What is she up to? What is he up to? What is going to happen to him or her? So if we do not try to understand these vulnerable samples in a classroom, then what kind of decisions they take and what kind of impact it has on the cohort or what kind of impact it has on the system. So it is important that we try to really educate not just the person who is vulnerable, but also try to educate the people who are normal, because we need to speak to these normal people, saying that there are chances that you might find some abnormalities among people whom you are sharing space. So when you try to identify those kind of people through their body language or mannerisms or their nature, it is important that we immediately get connected with that particular person and then try to see that the person has somebody to share their emotions as well. So otherwise, if each one of us are disconnected and living together, then there is no point in basically coming together. The whole purpose of coming together is for caring and sharing. So if that spirit is actually missing when people come together, then what is the purpose of actually coming together? So Audrey, you mentioned it very nicely. In fact, you have actually um, laid the context for today's session.
Thank you very much, sir.
Anybody else?
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, I'm Madhavi. I'm also a psychology student. Actually, I'm a motivational speaker.
Okay.
I'm interested in psychology. Why? Because children, they don't know how to read and how to express their feelings to others. Some people, they are depressed and they are suppressed their feelings to parents also. Even they don't know how to express. I really observed so many people, so many children and elders also. Even they don't know they are suffering from anxiety and anger issues or depression issues. Even they don't know, but they are trying to um, say that I don't have any problem, I don't have any issues, I'm okay, I'm all right. But they don't know they are suffering, they have a disorder, but they are not trying to express that they don't know how to overcome these type of things. So I thought that okay, as a motivational teacher, I want to know their inner feelings also. Then only I can solve their problems easily. So that's what I have taken the psychology. Now I'm very interested in this. So many people now in my belongings, I'll treat so many people. Um, these have these type of issues you are facing. So you have to overcome like this. I'll suggest so many people. Now I'm really happy that. So that's what I have taken the psychology.
Yeah. Thank you, Madhavi, for bringing this particular reason why you have joined psychology program. In fact, you mentioned one important point called as motivation. So
Yes, sir.
everybody gets motivated initially, but it is very difficult for us to retain that motivation for a good period of time. So the students can be motivated for only some time. The attention span is very, very limited. So the challenges are there to the fact that motivation cannot basically sustain for a longer period of time. So hence it is important that how do we basically generate or retain that motivation inside that will basically have a lasting impact on the adversities that we are actually facing. So that is one thing. The second thing is psychology as a course or as a program should not be pursued initially in order to basically see some kind of solutions to the people around us. As a matter of fact, if I consider myself as a student of psychology, I'm still considering myself as a student of psychology. Whatever concept that you learn in psychology program, each and every word or the sentence or a paragraph or the lesson or the chapter can be related to our own life. So once we are very clear about how we are thinking, how we are processing, how we are interpreting, and what kind of consequences we are drawing from the experiences that we have, and if we are able to basically understand our behavior in relation with others and others' behavior in relation to us, and if we are able to basically come to normalcy through the right way of thinking, then probably it is good to realize it, and it is also good to basically share that experiences to others. So my suggestion to all um, learned members over here is that let us not practice it, let us practice it to ourselves in order to be very clear about who we are. Once we are very clear about who we are, then probably we'll have an opportunity for us to basically connect the dots of the people with whom we are sharing spaces. So good, you're all volunteering in order to make a healthy society around us. So this is absolutely necessary. When everybody is busy in this world, you are trying to take some time and space in order to make people understand what is vital for their important lives to really make it more meaningful. So with this short introduction, let us get into the concept of lifespan psychology. I'll just try to give you a glimpse of why we are all assembled here. According to Indira Gandhi National Open University, the speaker who is going to speak is called as a counselor, and the listener who is going to listen to these particular sessions are called as learners. So the activity that is actually happening between us is the counseling session. When IGNOU came out with these counseling sessions, the idea is that majority of the learners may have doubts when they are actually going through the syllabus, may have doubts when they are actually going through the passages from the textbooks or the concepts they are studying. So there are chances that they are stuck at some important places for which clarification is required by some experts. Hence, IGNOU has come out with this concept called as counseling sessions, wherein the counselor is going to understand where the student has struck, and he's going to clarify the points which requires immediate attention of the counselor, immediate attention of the learner. So I assume that you all have gone through the syllabus called as lifespan psychology, and if you have any doubts, you can basically express it after some point of time. But meanwhile, because the duration is very short in order to explain the entire subject of lifespan psychology, within short duration of time, I would like to bring out to you some important insights in lifespan psychology and how it matters most in our everyday life or in lifespan development. So please, I request you all to reserve your questions till the end of the session. In between, if at all you feel you have any important doubt that needs to be clarified on what has been discussed, you can uh, you can unmute yourself and you can ask the question. But if you can resist the temptation of asking a question, probably I can help answer all the questions in the end. But nevertheless, I'm opening it to all the students to make it more interactive for this particular session. I'm just trying to share it. Can you see the screen now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what is there on the page? What is there on the screen?
Lifespan development.
Okay, so which means the screen is quite visible to all of you. And Audrey, I believe you are the one of the student who can immediately relate to this particular poem by William Wordsworth, because you are a language expert, and I'm sure you can be more nostalgic in order to get back the memories of what you have learned in your years of experience. So this is a poem by William Wordsworth. I'll come for a discussion on this particular poem that is written by Wordsworth in 1802. and it has a lot of significant relationship with what we are actually speaking. I really want everybody to understand that psychology cannot be seen as an independent subject. Psychology has to be understood in relation with many subjects, because as you pretty well know, um, the speaker is actually a speaker to all of you. He's also a counselor to you. He's also a father to his daughters. He's also a teacher to his students. So there are many roles one individual is actually playing in the society. In the same way, when one individual is playing many roles in the society in everyday life, in the same way, there are many subjects of interest that have correlation with the field of psychology. So, unless otherwise we understand the relation of psychology with other subjects, we may not be able to understand the beauty of the subject that we are interested to study. So, in this regard, I would like to bring the poem by William Wordsworth, who says, "My heart leaps up when I behold a rainbow in the sky. So was it when my life began, so is it now I am a man. So be it when I shall grow old, or let me die. The child is father of the man, and I could wish my days to be bound each to each by natural pity." There are a lot of things that we can actually take it from this particular poem, and it has great impact or understanding in the field of psychology. In fact, I believe many of the psychologists have referred to this particular poem, and they coined many important technical concepts that have high relevance in the field of psychology. So I'm reading it once again because I'm going to have a discussion with all of you about the essence of this particular poem written by William Wordsworth. He says, "My heart leaps up when I behold a rainbow in the sky. So was it when my life began, so is it now I am a man. So be it when I shall grow old, or let me die. The child is father of the man, and I could wish my days to be bound each to each by natural pity." So I request people to I just stop the screen. So you can bring out your thoughts about the poem, and in what way it can be related to the field of psychology that we are going to discuss. Is the point clear? You can switch on your videos if not it is possible for you. Unless otherwise there are conditions apply, probably yes. Because lifespan psychology is something which is more to do with the anatomy of the individual. So I'm trying to make it more interesting so that you will definitely like it for the reasons it has enough to be liked. Yeah, Audrey, are you going to start?
So I feel that Wordsworth has not lost his wonder of the world when he says he's so joyful when he sees a rainbow, and then that he is able to connect every day to the previous day and find relevance to the next day and celebrate. I think it's his life is a celebration. That's the way it's a, I mean, you talked about positive psychology, so I was thinking this is so spot on about positive psychology. And then he says, if I don't do this, let me die. I mean, that it's like as though to breathe a life. So it's a very inspiring thing that he's able to celebrate and connect the dots, like you said. uh, so I actually haven't read this poem till now, but then I've made a note of it. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing this. Yeah.
Yeah, fine. Good to hear that. So you're appreciating the fact that it really requires good time to go through it. So, in fact, it has a lot of significance. If anybody would like to share, I'm ready to listen. Or otherwise, if you want me to continue, I'll continue. So, shall I continue? Yeah. Okay. So, so when you look into this particular poem, it says, "My heart leaps up when I behold a rainbow in the sky." So this has been written by Wordsworth when he's no more a child, but as you have rightly mentioned, Audrey, when he has become old, also he has got that particular uh, he's gratified to his childhood, and he brought out all the fresh memories about the rainbow in the sky. So he was mentioning the beauty of the rainbow in the sky. So he says that rainbow is so beautiful, not just when you are growing old, but it is the same when you are during your child, when you have grown to a man, and when you grow old also, your heart leaps up. So you'll be more enthusiastic, you'll be more gratified, you'll be more happy, you'll be more glad, you'll be more delighted to see that particular rainbow in the sky. But if at all you try to observe, is it really, is it real? Is it realistic? Or as the years pass on by, do we really feel the same thing as we are growing older? So the curiosity of a small child is so high during his childhood or her childhood. But as the child grows over a period of time, we are talking about lifespan psychology or lifespan development. So, can the man that Wordsworth is actually referring to appreciate the beauty of rainbow in the sky when he has grown to be a man, or when he has grown old? Does the same man appreciate the beauty of the rainbow in the sky? So, the Wordsworth is also mentioning the fact that if I am not able to experience it in the same way as I've started my life as a child, matured to be a man, and then grown to be old, I would rather die. So he says that I need to carry that particular legacy of enthusiasm that has started in my, earlier years to late years. So, and he mentioned, he has quoted a wonderful sentence which says that the child is father of the man. Please underline this: the child is father of the man, because it has lot of psychological understanding yeah, in the passages to come. And I could wish my days to be bound each to each by natural beauty. So, which means that unfortunately, if at all we see the current days, we are unable to see um, the enthusiasm or the curiosity among children or among parents to continue from their childhood. So the curiosity or the imagination side of it, the experience side of it has been killed because of several factors. We are not going to discuss about it, but we are going to appreciate the fact that the curiosity is a natural ingredient of human life, and unfortunately, we have suppressed it long before it has to evolve. So, so recently, when I have gone through an interview by Ram Gopal Verma, a journalist was interviewing Ram Gopal Verma, and she was talking about how Ram Gopal Verma is going to experience his old age. Then he was mentioning, Mr. Ram Gopal Verma was mentioning that if at all I am attacked by any kind of disease, rather I would die than experience my old age with the diseases. So he doesn't want that. So if we can relate to what has been mentioned over here, Wordsworth says that if I'm not experiencing um, the rainbow in the sky as I used to experience during my childhood over a period of time, then there is no point in basically living. So the beauty has to be experienced, that beauty has to be cherished. The imagination has to be experienced, imagination has to be cherished. So this is what William Wordsworth says. So when we are talking about lifespan development, are we able to carry out, are we able to basically take with us all the important aspects of life? And if we are able to take important aspects of life, then in what way those events have influenced our lives? There can be positive events in our life, negative events in our life. If negative events in our life are so heavy, then in what way we are able to basically go back, retrospect, and try to bring back normalcy to our existing life because of positive experiences that we had together, we had in the earlier years. So that is what William Wordsworth has his relevance um, in lifespan psychology. You getting my point?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So with this, I'll go to the second slide. So we are talking about lifespan psychology. When we say lifespan psychology or lifespan development, it is part of the 5 pillars of psychology. When we say development, it is not just development per se from the point of view of the learning or lifespan development, but it starts from the biological development to cognitive development to the social and personality development to mental and physical health development. So in each of these pillars, we have many more. Some of the aspects have been briefly made to understand, so that we will understand what comes under these 5 pillars. So in biological, biological phase, we have this biophys psychology, neuroscience, sensation, perception, consciousness. All these generally come. In cognitive, we have perception, thinking, intelligence, memory. So your learning development from the point of view of the 5 pillars of psychology. So development need not be the development of an individual um, from the point of view of a quantification of how he has grown over a period of time, but there are a lot of qualitative aspects also that needs to be understood. So the qualitative aspects can be biological, cognitive, social and personality, mental health and physical health also. So before I take you to these to the concepts of lifespan psychology, I would like the audience to go through this particular case. This case has a lasting impact on the history of psychology. In fact, you'll be surprised to know Mr. Phineas Gage. I'll just explain to you the case about Phineas Gage and what kind of impact he has created in the field of psychology. For almost 47 to 50 years, this case has been in deliberations in Harvard University. So there is no study room or there is no class without the case of Phineas Gage. So by this time you have understood the importance or significance of Phineas Gage and its impact on psychology. I'll just try to explain to you what has happened. Phineas Gage was actually a worker. There are a lot of workers who are actually working in order to build some rails and develop a track for the mobility of the trains, loco pilots and all that. So when he's trying to basically build a track, and there are a lot of boulders that are there which are hindering the process of building a track. So he has to basically cut the boulders. If he has to cut the boulders, then he has to blast the boulders. So his duty is to basically pump in some chemicals into the big boulders and see that the boulder at one point of time blasts so that it is easy for Phineas Gage to cut the shorter forms of the boulders. So that is his duty. So when he is actually pumping some chemicals into big boulders, there was an accident in which the iron that he is actually using in order to pump in the chemicals into the boulder suddenly um, flew into a opposite direction. It went from the uh, left, cheek. It went inside the left cheek and then came out from the skull, and it flew 10 meters away from him. So you can understand the enormous amount of suffering that Phineas Gage has undergone when the iron rod entered his skull and came out from the skull and was thrown out of the skull for almost 10 feet away, 10 meters away. So now you would be thinking whether the person was alive or not. The answer is yes, the person was alive. He was immediately rushed to the hospital, and there was surgery that was actually conducted to his skull. And you have to understand what was Phineas Gage before the incident and what is Phineas Gage after the incident. This is very important from the point of view of the study of psychology. So Phineas Gage, before he met with that accident, he was very well organized and he was very introvert. He used to do his activities just like any other normal person does, and he's sincere, he's committed, and he's punctual also. These are the characteristics of Phineas Gage that were shared by his colleagues at that point of time. So now, after the incident has taken place, after the surgery has taken place, he was back to the work. But when his colleagues have actually, started interacting with Phineas Gage post-accident, then Phineas Gage was not the same person. So Phineas Gage, lost some part of his memory, and he was not normal. He was not organized, and he was very, very impulsive. So he got very irritation, and he was very, very irritational, and all that. So there is a difference between how he was before the accident and how he is after the accident. Now, for the students of psychology, it is important that by luck, because he was alive. I think for the sake of psychology students, I believe, because there were a lot of understanding on this particular case, and hence we were able to get to know about uh, how people generally behave after post-traumatic experiences. So, in this case, the important lesson that we can really get to know is the brain, as you pretty well know, is divided into two halves. One is the left side of the brain, second one is the right side of the brain. And in the brain, there are important components. For example, there is prefrontal cortex. We have hippocampus. We have amygdala. So there are a lot of important elements that are actually there in the brain, and they are the actual reasons why a person thinks, how a person thinks, why a person behaves, how a person behaves. So, and we can say that in nutshell, we can say this brain is the central processing unit for the entire personality. So, from this particular case, the researchers or the scientists or the students of psychology have understood that there are some parts in the human brain which are essential for some aspects of learning, some aspects of behavior. So, if those elements are disturbed, if those elements are damaged in the brain, they have an impact on the future course of action of the individuals. So this is very important. Let's take an example. The left side of the brain has an impact on the right side of the body. The right side of the brain has an impact on the left side of the body. The left side of the brain is more to do with the language learning, language training, language learning, and all that stuff. So that is how it is all about. So by this time, I think you have understood the fact that when we are talking about the brain, it is essential that we understand the anatomy of the brain. If we don't understand the anatomy of the brain, there are chances that we may lose the reasons why we behave like this. I'll just try to explain it in a more detailed manner. So, when we're talking about prefrontal cortex, have you seen the prefrontal cortex in the image that I have shared with you? I'll just share it once again. Yeah. If you can see this particular image over here to the bottom right corner, so the arrow that is actually showing to you is the frontal lobe or prefrontal cortex. Please remember this particular space or this particular image called as prefrontal cortex. And that is very, very important for a greater understanding of our life in general and our life in specific. So, like I'll explain to you. Now, this is called as forehead. The place where I'm actually placing my arm is called as a forehead. Behind this particular arm lies the prefrontal cortex. Now, what is the significance of prefrontal cortex? Prefrontal cortex is the last organ that will be developed in an individual over a period of time. When does it start? The prefrontal cortex starts when the kid is born. But by the age of 24 or 25 years, prefrontal cortex gets developed. So, which means till 24 years, the prefrontal cortex will not be developed or it will be in the process of development. period. So you have to underline that. So what does this prefrontal cortex do? Why are you giving more importance to this prefrontal cortex? Prefrontal cortex is more to do with the problem solving and decision making. How our thoughts are interpreted, how our thoughts are perceived, how our thoughts are transformed into actions are only possible if at all the prefrontal cortex is natural, is healthy. But if at all the prefrontal cortex is unhealthy, or if at all it is damaged because of some tissues or damaged tissues, then it has its own impact on the behaviors of the individuals or the thought process of the individuals. If somebody is not taking decisions properly, or if somebody's behavior is not according to our expectations, it has its own reasons behind this prefrontal cortex. And we have something called as a hippocampus, and we have something else called as amygdala. When we talk about hippocampus is a repository of all the emotions or the experiences that an individual has. And amygdala is something which immediately releases the emotions of an individual. So if hippocampus has the repository of all the experiences, amygdala brings out the emotions of an individual. Now you try to see the relation between prefrontal cortex, amygdala, and hippocampus. Now let us see the relation. Prefrontal cortex is something to do with the problem solving and decision making. If we are not giving instances, if we are not exercising our mind for problem solving and decision making, then it has its own impact on hippocampus. What kind of memories are we trying to deposit in hippocampus if we are not exercising our mind for problem solving and decision making? I hope you are getting my point.
No. So can you come again, sir?
So there are two important ingredients that I have mentioned. One is the prefrontal cortex, uh, whose primary duty is into problem solving and decision making. The second important element is the hippocampus. The third important aspect is amygdala. The prefrontal cortex is more to do with problem solving and decision making. And the hippocampus is a repository of the experiences of the individual. It is a storehouse of the experiences of an individual. And amygdala is an element that brings out the emotions of the individual. Now let us try to see the relationship or correlation between the prefrontal cortex, the hippocampus, and the amygdala. If an individual, if a student or if a child, if a boy or a girl or a person does not experience these problem solving or decision making activities in general, then what kind of impressions is he living in hippocampus? This is very important. If the individual does not get into this problem solving and decision making, then the storehouse of the hippocampus is null and void. It is empty. So if it is empty, then what kind of decisions will be taken by an individual? So because the space that should be used, if the prefrontal cortex is not utilized, and if the hippocampus is empty, how will an individual take a decision? How will an individual make a decision? His decisions will be more emotional or irrational, because the amygdala will come forward in order to take the decisions of the individual. So majority of the decisions would be more emotional in nature rather than rational in nature. So that is the reason it is essential that we need to basically go into those situations wherein we exercise our mind in order to basically understand what is the problem, how to solve the problem with different alternatives, how to weigh those different alternatives in order to solve the problem, and create best of impressions in hippocampus. Because in future, if at all we are going to get similar experience of problem solving or decision making, then hippocampus will try to give a very good picture of previous experiences that the individual has experienced in order to solve a problem or a decision to be made. So that is the reason whether we are going to pass, whether we are going to basically take a right decision or solve the problem successfully or not, what kind of efforts went through in order to create a healthy impression in the mind of the person is more important for future decisions to be made, for the future problems to be resolved. So if this is made to be aware to the small kids or to the children that we have in our home, the importance of problem solving and decision making, not from the point of view of passing the examinations, but from the point of view of challenging everyday life situations, then definitely students or children around us would be really appreciating the importance of the anatomy as a great influence of successful or effective problem solving and decision making. So you have gone through this particular aspect called as intelligence, and people say that intelligence is required for an individual, but over a period of time, we have realized that it is not just intelligence alone, IQ alone, but EQ also is very, very important. Emotional quotient is also very, very important. When we say emotional quotient, what is that emotional quotient? Emotional quotient is something more to do with emotional intelligence. So, you know, emotional intelligence has been coined by Goldman. So, Goldman has come up with an important concept called as emotional intelligence. He says that we should not only be intelligent, but we should also be adept in understanding our own emotions, understanding or to be aware of my own emotions. Only when I understand my emotions, I will be in a position to manage my emotions well. Second one is Daniel Goleman said, once you have understood your own emotions, once you have identified your emotions, you can basically manage your emotions. The second aspect is if you are able to identify the emotions of others, then you can manage the emotions of others. So these are four quadrants. First is identifying self-emotions. Second one is managing self-emotions. Identifying the emotions of others, managing the emotions of others. So he's talking about emotions only. So he says that every individual has these emotions also in him, which needs to be deeply understood and deeply managed, properly managed. So the IQ is not only important, but EQ is also very, very important. So hence, the decisions that we take should not only be emotional, but they should also be looked from the point of view of rationality also. You getting the point, everybody? Any questions here?
No, sir.
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay. So we'll go to the next slide. So there is another case over here. The curious case of patient HM. This will also give a very good understanding to all of you as to how the brain and the elements of the brain have an impact on people's lifestyles or people's lives. So Henry Molaison, for him the time stopped on September 1, 1953. So for many years he has suffered severe seizures. So because he's unable to bear the seizures, the doctors suggested that there should be a surgery that needs to be administered on the brain of the subject. And what they have done is they have removed a thumb size uh, section of tissue from inside of the patient's brain. And what happened? You know, it worked. So the seizures are dropped. Uh, and afterwards, what happened? He's left with permanent amnesia. He could remember some things, scenes from his childhood, some facts about his parents, and historical events that occurred before his surgery, but he was unable to form new memories. If he met someone who then left the room, within minutes he had no recollection of the person or their meeting. So this is a curious case of patient HM. Now I want to bring the attention of all the learners from the previous case to this particular case. In the previous case, we had an understanding of one accident and its impact on the behavior of an individual. Before the accident, the individual was very, very organized. He was very polite. He was sincere. And he used to do his work in an organized manner, conscientious manner. But after the accident, post-accident, he was completely a different person. He was very, very um, he was very, very impulsive, and and he was not the same person. So now, in the first case, we are talking about a situation wherein the person's behavior changed. In the second case, post surgery, the patient, even though he was able to solve his seizures problem, but he developed what is called as amnesia. So we have to understand the fact that anything that is related to the behavior or anything that is related to the learning, anything that is related to the memory, everything is in the brain. Now, we have a lot of people around us, and including us, in relation with others. If there is any issue with learning, if any issue with attention, if any issue with behaviors, all these things are actually part of the brain activity. And if the brain is not healthy, then we can basically understand its consequences. I hope you got the point.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I would like to bring another case for you: the murder of Kitty Genovese and the bystander effect. Some of you have understood. Some of you are aware of this case. Can you see the screen?
No, sir.
You
We
cannot
can
see the
see the
screen?
screen. Yeah, we can see.
Okay. So the murder of Kitty Genovese and the bystander effect. So some of you would be knowing about this particular case, which says that there was a murder on the streets in New York. I think there is some disturbance. Yeah, I think now the disturbance is clear. I'm sorry. So can you see the screen? The murder of Kitty Genovese and the bystander effect.
You
Yes, sir.
have patient HM on your screen, sir.
Previous slide, sir. Just showing previous slide.
What about now?
Still the previous page itself, sir. We can
Slide
see.
number 5.
Yeah. So can you see the screen now? The murder of Kitty Genovese and the bystander effect.
Yes, sir.
Sir, yes, sir.
Okay, great. Well, let us discuss this particular Kitty Genovese and the bystander effect. There was a wonderful case, probably after this particular session or whenever you're free, you can go back to this particular case once again. You can Google about the murder of Kitty Genovese and the bystander effect. Bystander effect is an important concept in social psychology. You definitely love social psychology as a subject because it has great relation with what all we are doing in everyday life. So Kitty Genovese's case is very, very peculiar. She was murdered, stabbed to death near her home in the huge gardens section of New York on March 30, 1964. The essence of this case is that there are a lot of people who are actually looking into this particular murder. They were observing this particular murder, stabbing the Kitty Genovese to death. But unfortunately, none of them dare to step ahead and then try to call the police. 37 who saw murder didn't call the police. Apathy at stabbing of Queens woman shocks inspector. So this is a big case in the field of psychology. And a lot of people who are actually observing a person who is stabbing a person to death, but nobody has actually taken the initiation of calling the police. But what has happened over a period of time? After a long time, when things are out of the control, then one or two people came forward and then they started complaining to the police, and then the police came, and then after that, there were a lot of actions that were actually taken. And then there was research that was actually conducted for many years in different parts of the world with respect to Ichinomi's case. It is called as bystander effect. In bystander effect, what happens is if there are a group of people who are actually standing together, and if some decision has to be taken, then if some action has to be taken, so each and every person will feel that let the other person do it, why should I? If at all he or she is left alone, probably it is very easy for him to take a decision instantaneously at the spur of the moment. But if at all he or she is with a group, then there is always a chance that the decision for him or her to be taken will be delayed, because there are a lot of dimensions to this particular thing. One is why should I? Second is if at all I take if I take a step, what is going to happen to the consequence? Will I be responsible to the consequence? Will I basically be put hold to the consequence? So what happens if at all I basically step forward and something goes wrong? What is going to happen? So will my dignity be curtailed? Will I lose my self-respect? So there are a lot of dimensions that needs to be understood. So forget about what are the dimensions or what are the causes or the reasons behind this bystander effect. But the fact is that we cannot leave certain things in the society just because of this bystander effect. So in fact, we have to understand the fact that if this bystander effect happens in the society will perish very, very soon. It is very, very, very unhealthy in a community of bystander effects. If the community has a lot of people with bystander effects, then it is very difficult for us to survive. That is the reason if you see a lot of you know countries, there is still a perception that even though the West is very beautiful, the West is very very organized. There is $1 million dream that people are actually chasing in the West, but people generally want to settle in the East only, and especially in India, because they believe the fundamental fact that if at all we are traveling by road or by train or by bus, there are people who will definitely care for us. That is still there. The society is not has did not become so individualistic, but in traces we can find such kind of individualistic experiences in parts of India. But nevertheless, we cannot basically dilute dilute it from the fact that still India is a country where people generally care and share for their feelings. So it is not the same that we see in the West, that somebody generally come to a mall, somebody has some argument with somebody, and then somebody shoots, and then somebody leaves. And what happens after that, you pretty well know. So the individualistic economies, individualistic countries have this kind of bystander effect, more to do with bystander effect than with economies or the countries with the collectivism kind of uh, behavior patterns. So this is very important for us to recognize. So now, in every case that I am trying to share with you, you have to understand from the point of view of lifespan psychology, what could be the cause, what could be the reason why people generally care, why people generally do not care. Can you see the screen now?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. So like that, we can basically continue these experiments. So I think you would be knowing this gentleman, Nick, who is born like this. It's not by accident, he is left with with this body, but he is born like this. He tried to basically commit suicide when he became aware that he does not fit into the regular stream of ecosystem. So he was so disheartened to the fact that he's unable to commit suicide because of his own inability to commit suicide. So that is more disappointing to him in his life. So then he realized that there is no other go except to basically find a meaning in the life that is actually provided to him. And now he is a successful person. who is trying to travel to the entire world, trying to speak to large number of people, gatherings, and then they are trying to tell each and every person whom he meets that life is worth living. So, and we have to relate to the fact that what during his childhood had preserved that particular ability for him to retain his motivation and sustain his life. This is very important. We will try to understand those things when we go into the concepts of lifespan psychology. You know this Arunima Sinha. Arunima Sinha has been traveling every day to go to her office. And once she was actually traveling by train, she found some group of people who were actually trying to rob her purse. And then she resisted the people who were actually trying to rob her purse. And in the process, they started trying to be more violent, and then they stabbed her, and then they pushed her outside the running train. So when the train was running at 80 to 100 kilometers per hour, she was actually pushed outside. When she was pushed outside, she fell on the other side of the track. And to our dismay, what happened is she was still lying on the other side of the track till early mornings of the next day. So the story says that, the legend says that at least 30 to 40 trains moved over her on her legs, pair of legs. 30 to 40 trains overnight have moved over a pair of legs. That you can see what kind of situation she has undergone over the night, entire night. So she next day morning, as usual, when the people from the railways, when they are trying to inspect each and every rail track, they found that there is one person who is actually lying on the railway track. So immediately, this lady was rushed to the hospital. The images that you are seeing is exactly the scene when she was rushed to the hospital. She was in coma. She was unconscious for quite some time, and then um, what happened was they have to cut the remaining part of the infected leg. So, because last night what happened was there were a lot of rodents which survived on taking the flesh out of the remaining part of the leg. So, hence the doctors started doing some surgery, and she could not feel the pain of the leg, because it is very difficult. Automatically, she's actually suffering a lot, and there is nothing else to basically say that she's suffering more. Then what happened is slowly the this news went into the media, and then there are a lot of stories that were developed around this particular incident. And you pretty well know when this news goes to the media will cook different stories about her relationship with people, about her about her travel without ticket and all that stuff. So she has taken the entire pain by herself, and then she realized that now that I cannot basically come back to normal life unless otherwise I need to achieve something big. People will not accept me. So at that point of time, she has seen Bachinder Pai climbing the Mount Everest, and she made a request to the hospital authorities that once her legs were amputated, so there should be a meeting with the Bachinder Pai. So she went to Bachinder Pai. She said that this is my thought process. Bachinder Pai said, yes, it is good to have these kind of ideals when you're coming out from the hospital like this, but it is very difficult for a handicapped person to climb the Mount Everest. She said, no, I really mean what I'm trying to say, and she geared up in order to get to be trained to go to the Mount Everest top. So Bachinder Pai said, yes, you have already done in your mind. Now you have to prove to the world that you have already achieved that particular uh, challenge. So she got into training, and she was the first amputee or handicapped person who climbed the Mount Everest. So that is Arunima Sinha. So from these cases, we need to really reflect on childhood traumas or childhood experiences or biological damages that have happened in our brains, and what kind of impact that have actually created over a period of time. So these things have to be understood. There is another person called as Manchi, the Mountain Man. I think you have seen his movie also displayed in some of the TV channels. So I hope some of you are aware of the Manchi, the Mountain Man. Yes or no?
Yes, yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. So I think when you know him, you can understand, what kind of thought process that went inside him. So I'll just take you to this particular slide so that we can easily relate to what we have learned from these case experiences. When we are talking about lifespan psychology, it starts from our childhood to go to what is this called as adolescence, after that adulthood, and after that maturity, and then decline. So old age, decline. So in each and every stage, there are a lot of opportunities and challenges. So the goal is to basically go through these opportunities and challenges and see that our growth or the development happens in the most uh, healthy as possible. If at all it has not happened to us, in what way we can nurture these kind of opportunities to the people around us so that they grow, they develop in the most healthy conditions. When I say healthy conditions, it is not that to leave the individual without any kind of experiencing in the adversities, but it is important that the child should understand both the adversities of life as well as the prosperities of life. So exposure to adversity of life should always basically be informed to the child, as well as the prosperity of life is always known to the child by experience. We will never say that a child has to basically experience the adversity, but at least exposure has to be given. Only then the child will try to really think from the other's point of view. The empathy or the sympathy will develop in an individual. So there are multiple theories over here whose theories have created lasting impressions in the field of psychology. So one of the theorists is Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud is very well known to many people in the field of psychology. He has come out with very good concepts which are still recording in the academic arenas of the ecosystem. He says that there are three important elements that govern the personality, which are called as ego, id, and superego. Id, ego, and superego. So he says that because of the dynamism that takes place between id, ego, and superego, a personality is coming out with its own behaviors. So now we need to understand if a person is behaving in one particular manner or in another particular manner, what would be the reasons behind it. So if we want to find out the reasons, then we have to understand the intricacies or the dynamics that play between id, the ego, and superego. So for that, we really need to understand what is this id, what is this ego, and what is this superego. Only then we will be in a position to understand how the personality is governed, how the personality acts in relation with people around it. So when we are talking about id, so id, according to Sigmund Freud, always looks into the pleasure principle. Id is very, very primitive. Id has that immediate gratification. Id is irrational. Id is impulsive and operates at unconscious level. So if somebody is actually very, very impulsive, if somebody is very, very aggressive, if somebody is is very, very gratified, if somebody is irrational, then we can say that he is operating at id level, or the entire personality is governed by id. This is very important. I hope you are trying to understand what I'm trying to say. The second aspect is the superego. Now, according to Freud, superego is something quite opposite to id. Superego believes the fact that the society is governed with some rules and regulations, norms, ideals, and all that. And it is the responsibility of each individual to preserve, protect, abide, conquer, and then accept the rules and regulations that are imposed by the society. If the society has to function in a healthy condition, then if each and every individual has to abide by the rules and regulations that are imposed by the society onto the individuals. So superego dictates to the personality that here are some value systems, here are some morals which you are supposed to know and which you are supposed to abide by. Whereas it is actually governed by the basic pleasure principle. When the pleasure principle is in the most active stage, it does not really care for what society believes or what society perceives, what society thinks. So it does whatever it wants. Whereas superego, if at all it is in a dormant state, then it will generally try to take dominance of the personality. Now, what is the role of ego? Ego, ego. Now, what ego does is it tries to balance the feelings of id with the norms or value systems of superego. So, what ego does? It tries to balance. It is called as homeostasis. It tries to balance between the pleasure principle and what is required to the society. So, generally, what happens, what we generally hear in the society is about ego, which by many of us believe that ego should not be there and the ego is injurious to health and all that. So technically speaking, if at all somebody understands the language of psychology, ego is something which needs to be there in the individual, which is supposed to basically balance the id as well as superego feelings. If you try to understand the superego also, superego cannot dominate the entire personality once again. It cannot be too idealistic. It cannot be too perfectionist. It cannot basically go on one side of the coin completely. It cannot be skewed completely. If not, it is skewed completely, then the person or the personality may not basically adjust to the realities of life. Let's take an example. I'm going to the left side of the road. I'm walking on the left side of the road. So my superego, if at all it is dominant than id or ego, then I should only walk to the left side of the road without caring for anything else. I believe the fact that if I'm walking to the left side of the road or driving to the left side of the road, I am following the rules imposed by the society, and so I am safe. Now, let's take an example that in the opposite direction, if some vehicle is actually coming towards me, to my direction where I am walking, so should I still believe that I need to basically walk to the left side of the road, come what may? I may be dead on the road, but still I'll basically stand on my rules and regulations. No, I need to basically adjust my situation to a situation so that I will survive. So I need to adjust my behavior. So I'm not saying that we are supposed to basically fall on either to the left side or to the right side, but we are supposed to adjust. So the adjustment, has to be there. Adjustment has to really work, and it is only possible if at all the ego is strengthened enough in order to balance the id and superego feelings. I hope you understand. So now what is at the conscious level, what is at the pre-conscious level, what is at the unconscious level? Is the id is at the unconscious level, superego is at the pre-conscious level, and the ego is always at the conscious level. Now understand the fact that a lot of psychologists, when they are trying to manage people around them, when they try to speak to the individuals in order to counsel, the ego is operating, the superego may be next to operate, but the feelings are there which are not accessible to the people around us. So, Sigmund Freud says that majority of the decisions that we are taking in everyday life are because of the id factors and not just the ego and superego factors. I'm not talking about all the important decisions that we take in life, but if at all we see some deviated behaviors in society around us, then we can say that all those behaviors or deviant behaviors that we see around us are not governed by ego or superego, but they are governed by id reasons. So unfortunately, these id reasons are not known to the people on the face of it. They generally see the ego, they generally see the superego, but they don't see the id factors. That is the reason, if at all you see in many instances, if there is lot of crime on women or violence on women, a lot of people who will come out into the media and say that, is he not aware that he should not do? Is he not aware he should not do? Yes, the person is aware he should not do because the ego is working, the ego is working. There are no issues with ego, the super ego. But when the crime has been done, when the violence was done, then the ego or super ego was dormant, and the it was in the driver's seat. So every individual, every healthy individual knows what he is doing, but unfortunately, he is unable to govern his id feelings because they are suppressed and they do not know how to manage those id feelings. So that is the reason it is essential that the counselors over a period of time should have mastery in bringing out the id factors that are the causes of a lot of irrational decisions or irrational thinkings that they see in people. One second thing is in recruitments. Generally, what happens is that an individual is recruited or selected based on his competence in some technical subjects. But it is also important that the person should also be a fit to the system. If at all we look at a fitment between the person or the personality and the organization, then it is essential that the organization also considers the qualitative aspects of interviewing also. The candidate can be very good with respect to his technical skills, but once he is recruited and if he does not have good human relations, and if he does not have self-control, and if he cannot manage his own emotions properly, then do you think that the particular individual is an important resource in the ecosystem of the organization? He may be very good with respect to his field of study, but if at all he does not control his feelings, control his emotions, and if he does not treat people around him properly, then do you think that the organization has taken the right decision in shortlisting or selecting the right candidate? So in the interviews also, it is essential that the psychological aspects of the personality are also understood in relation with the profile of the job also. That is the reason we are seeing many companies are also administering the psychometric tests to the individuals before they are taking a decision on selecting a candidate or not. So nowadays, people are more aware of these psychometric tests. So just because I'm given a sheet of paper and if at all I'm given few questions and I'm supposed to basically select some options, it's very easy for me to realize the fact that these questions are more to do with psychological analysis of an individual. So I will write something which are socially desirable. So I should appear in such a way that I'm very healthy mentally. So the answers that the individual gives with respect to the psychology tests are based on the ego uh, and superego and not the id. So which means the organization may fail in realizing the id feelings of an individual because the applicant is more aware of how he can manipulate the interviewer. So it is not just about relying on some paper documents in order to select an individual, but it is essentially required to discuss with the applicant with some open-end questions and see how that particular discourse can lead to bringing the inhibitions of an individual from unconscious level to conscious level. I hope you're getting my point.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Any thoughts on this till now? What shall I
sir.
continue?
Sir, this is Gautam.
Yeah, please.
Sir, on a lighter note, you were discussing this in a very deeper manner, but back of my mind, I was thinking of cartoons. where for example Tom and Jerry or something, where one cat will be having red horns, and it will be saying that do this, do something which is not apt in the society. At the same time, one another cat will be there like an angel hat, and it will be saying that you should not do it. So I was imagining that instance while we were saying about ego, subconscious thing and all. So Eid will be the red horns cat, and ego also might be the red horns cat, but whereas the other thing will be a angel cat, I think. I mean, I was just persuading in that manner. Sir, I think you are in mute, sir. I cannot
We
hear.
can't hear you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much for relating that example with your own experiences.
Thank you, sir.
Process. Good. So, anything else? Anybody wants to share what we have discussed till now? Your own opinions, because it cannot be monologue. Yes, Madam Audrey.
Sir, so when people do these self-report inventories, are they relying more on ego and superego?
That's a good question. So, what happens is when people see nowadays, everybody is informed. Everybody is informed. At a click of a mouse button, we can easily get to know what people require, and that is how we are trying to manipulate. So that I should not say in this gathering that we are trying to be more manipulative in nature, and that is how we are actually surviving. So when it comes to this organizational selection test, when the inventories are administered to the people for shortlisting the right applicant for the right job, the person who is actually applying, he also knows how many kind of what kind of tests will be there, what kind of questions will be asked, and so he generally goes through it. He practices them. So now the question is, can the organization rely on what has been documented by the employee, or should those questions be probed, PROBED, probed further? The answer is yes, the questions have been probed further. So that is the reason we have something called as behavioral interview techniques, BIU. BIT, behavioral interview questions or behavioral interview techniques or whatever it is. So what is this behavioral interview? What is the essence of this behavioral interview questions or behavioral interview techniques? So according to behavioral interview techniques, the past behavior is a wonderful understanding of how the future behavior is going to look like. So during behavioral interview sessions, the interviewer is going to basically put the individual in a situation wherein the applicant has to basically take back to his memories and bring out how he has experienced it, what problem he has faced or experienced, how he has tried to resolve it, and how he is going to basically resolve in the future. So, because for the interviewer, the past experience is very important, because past experience is one of the yardstick to measure the future behavior of the individual. So, the behavioral interviewer believes the fact that unless otherwise an individual has a previous experience, he may not be able to bring out the best of the answer. Let's take an example. I'll just give a question to an applicant like this. I'll say, when was the last time you failed, and how did you successfully come out from the situation? Let's take an example. This is a question I asked. So you are trying to solve a problem. Fine. You are doing a project. Okay. Why did you choose this particular project? What motivated you to do this project? So if I don't have a sufficient reasoning behind these questions, and the reasoning does not indicate the originality of an individual, then I can easily try to measure the answers, and through the answers, I can basically understand whether the student is speaking through his ego, managing through ego, or bringing out the in feelings or
Thank you, sir.
yeah. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, so I'll go to the next slide. Okay, this ego, id and super ego are very, very important. Please remember that, because I'm going to share with you another important theory that has been given by, I guess it is Eric Berne. He came out with a concept called as ego states, EGOSTATES, ego states. So he has written a wonderful book called as uh, Thomas A. Harris. The name of the book is I Am Okay, You Are Okay. It's very difficult for you to digest immediately without sufficient knowledge of the psychological concepts, but still I recommend you to have this particular book in your library of books that you already have on psychology. Else, you can also go through the summary of the book that is authored by Thomas Harris, which is called as I Am Okay, You Are Okay. What is this transactional analysis written by Eric Berne informs to us? On one side, Sigmund Freud says that the individual personality is actually governed by three important ingredients. One is the id, ego, and superego. So, and the ego generally tries to balance the id as well as superego feelings and sees that the personality is functioning in the optimum conditions. And taking these concepts into consideration, Eric Berne, in his transaction analysis, mentioned that every individual has three states of ego. They are called as parental ego state. Second one is adult ego state. Third one is child ego state. Now I remember Wordsworth when he mentioned that child, adult, and man, something like that. He mentioned child, man, and then old age. So he used these particular three words. Probably Eric Berne has actually taken those three stages of life into this particular concept called as parental ego state, adult ego state, and child ego state. I'll explain to you so that you can easily relate with the poem that Will Wordsworth has written. I am sure Eric Berne has actually read this particular poem and got the inspiration of this idea of bringing out a concept called as transactional analysis, which talks about three ego states every individual has: parental ego state, adult ego state, and child ego state. Now, let me explain to you this parental ego state. According to Eric Berne, he says that parental ego state is a state wherein we try to bring out the characteristics of being a parent. You have observed your father, you have observed your mother, how they govern you in your family. When you are a child and till the time you have come out from the home independently to pursue your career, till the time you are there in your home and you have seen how your parents behaved, how your parents communicated, how your parents conflicted with each other. Everything you have seen through your parents. So when you have seen everything from the parents' perspective, you tend to basically take naturally some of the behavioral patterns of your parents. So the commanding, the demanding, so all those aspects are taken by you. I'm not saying commanding and demanding are the only traits, but the safety, the security, the well-being, all these are also aspects of the parents. So they would like to see their children to be safe. They want their children to be protected. They want the children to be secured. They want the children to manage themselves very well. So they do commanding, they do what is this called as dictating, ordering, and all that. So dominating and all that. All these aspects are the characteristics of the parental ego state. I'm not saying they are unhealthy or negative, but I'm saying they are the characteristic features. So Eric Berne mentioned that parental ego state has these characteristic features. Now, the child ego state, you pretty well know what are the characteristics of a child ego state. The child is very impulsive. He lives to the moment, and then he gets gratified easily. He gets attracted to things easily. He's very enthusiastic. He's bubbly, and he's restless. This is how he is. Child ego state, everybody understands. The another ego state that lies between parental ego state and child ego state is the adult ego state. The adult ego state, according to Eric Berne, is an important element that governs the individual's personality. According to him, he says that adult ego state is more characterized by rationality, by reasoning, by analysis, by synthesis, by comprehension, by logic, by creativity. So Eric Berne says that unless otherwise we have these characteristic features, we may not be able to basically balance parental ego states and child ego states. So according to Eric Berne, every individual has these three ego states. For example, if I am speaking to you right now, which ego state is dominant in me is very important. Is my parental ego state dominating, child ego state is dominating, or adult ego state is dominating? So if I'm controlling this particular audience in this particular session by dictating, by commanding, by speaking loud, then my parental ego state is dominant. If I'm trying to crack more jokes in this particular session and create a humor in this particular session, or dilute the essence of this particular counseling session, then my child ego state is predominant. So when I'm trying to explain to you something with examples, trying to see some kind of meaning or rationality in what I'm trying to say, then my adult ego state is more dominant. So which means every individual has these kind of ego states. You have to understand which ego state is actually popping out and which is actually ruling that particular personality. According to Eric Berne, he says that as long as the ego states are actually in tandem with each other, then there is no problem with respect to communication between people. So for example, if the parental ego state of an individual is speaking to the parental ego state of an individual, the communication happens in a healthy manner. But if the parental ego state of an individual is addressing to the child ego state of an individual, and if the child ego state of an individual is responding to the parental ego state of the individual, then there is a chance of communication issue between those two people. That is what we have to understand. So if there are some relationship issues that are happening between people, for example, father and son, or daughter and mom, or between friends, or between teacher and student, or between husband and wife, let us try to see or probe or analyze which ego state the other person is operating and which ego state I am trying to respond. If the other person is actually speaking from the point of view of adult ego state, wherein he requires or he will be happy with analysis, he will be happy with synthesis, he will be happy with logic, he will be happy with reasoning. But if I'm operating at parental ego state by saying, no, you don't do it, if I'm commanding, if I'm demanding, or if I'm trying to cut a joke to his analysis, then you can understand the consequences of the communication or discourse. It will fall. It will fall its natural death. So that is the reason in most of these interpersonal issues, interpersonal relationship issues, it is essential that we understand the ego states. That is the reason he has written another book called as Games People Play. So you read these books, two books, you'll understand how people generally play with these ego states and in what way we are supposed to create a homeostasis in ourselves in order to create a healthy relationship with others. You're getting my point?
Sir,
Yes, sir.
you can take 10 minutes break and again 3:45 we can start.
Yes, sir. 3:45 will start, sir. Sure, sir.
Okay.
I can log. I can stop and then I
Yeah,
can
you
log
can
back.
close
Right?
the screen. You can
Yes.
close the screen, but link is open, but just
Yes.
you can close the screen.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
So, what is the second book you said, sir?
Games people play.
Okay, okay, sir. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome back. Everybody's ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions on what we have discussed? Something you find it useful, meaningful, or I'll continue it. Shall I continue?
Please continue, sir.
Okay. Thank you. So this has a correlation I was mentioning about. Can you see the screen now? Right.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And superego. Yeah. Now we can see a relationship between the theory that is actually given by Sigmund Freud to Eric Berne. In fact, Eric Berne has actually taken the ingredients from Sigmund Freud. We'll go to next Erik Erikson's framework for development because this is an important concept in lifespan development. In many ways, in fact, this question used to come in examinations for quite a good number of times. Not just from the point of view of scoring marks, but it is essential that each one of you have enough of understanding of each and every important challenge that has been mentioned here at each and every stage. We're talking about stages of development, and stages of development was actually started by the first theory of stages of development was started by Sigmund Freud in his psychoanalytic personality development, and he talked about many stages: oral stage, phallic stage, latency stage, and all that. You can easily understand it um, when you are reading through the textbook. So the goal of those stages is, I'll just give you the essence of those stages. According to Sigmund Freud, he says that each and every stage has to be considered significant, is considered significant. And the child, when he or she is actually growing through or maturing through each and every stage, in each and every stage, the kid or the child should not be fixated. What do you mean by fixation? He used the technical term called as fixation. The child should not be deprived, or he or she should not basically overdo it. In each and every stage, either he is deprived of it, or he should not be overdone it. If at all he is deprived of it, he will be fixated. If at all he is overdoing it, then also he is fixated. So then the future life basically is influenced by the fixation of that particular stage. So when if a student, if a child is actually fixated in oral stage, then there are chances that in the later years of his development, his life will be influenced by the fixation in the oral stage. This is important. So you can understand it easily when you're going through that particular textbook. So now Erik Erikson is another theorist. He also framed the personality development, and he mentioned that Sigmund Freud has actually, what is the basis of Sigmund Freud with respect to the personality development? Sigmund Freud's basis to personality development is based on the earlier years of life experiences. The entire personality development is dependent on completely on the initial stages of his life. Let's take an example. According to Sigmund Freud, the personality is fully developed between 0 to 8 years or 9 years. So, can we say that anything after 9 years or 12 years is left to the destiny of an individual? Can we say like that? It is very difficult to say. But Sigmund Freud says that in majority of the cases that he has observed over a period of time, and the kind of patients that he used to basically welcome at his clinic. So, a lot of analysis was actually done, and finally, all those issues were boiled down to uh, the stages of personality development. So that is the reason he proposed or he made it to the limelight of the theory of psychosexual development of an individual, that the entire personality is governed by the stages the individual progresses in his life. So, whereas Erik Erikson believes that it is not just the formative years that are very important for the personality development of an individual, but it is essential that the social environment plays a very, very, very important role in characterizing or in nurturing the individual and then adjusting the individual to the outside world. So that is the reason if you observe in Erik Erikson's framework for development from birth to 18 months till 65 to death. So if you see the main challenge that the child undergoes, you see all these elements are part of the society in general, or the social factors that govern the personality. It can be trust versus mistrust, autonomy versus shame and doubt, initiative versus guilt, industry versus inferiority, identity versus role confusion, intimacy versus isolation, generativity versus stagnation, ego integrity versus display. Now, how do we understand this, sir? I do not want to read from the point of view of passing the examination, but because you mentioned that this is very important from the point of view of understanding life in general, so I request you to explain this in a way that we all understand it. So, Erik Erikson says that from birth to 18 months, the child is exposed to different situations. When he is exposed to different situations, there is a dilemma between in the child regarding trust versus mistrust. Let's take an example. Let's take an example. If the child is observed to be crying, now we do not know what is the reason for crying. So, if at all we leave the child till the time the child stops crying, so what are the unconscious aspects that the child will basically take in his or her mind with respect to what he's supposed to get? So now, if somebody is actually addressing the child immediately when the child starts crying, then the child will feel comfortable. But if there is a delay, which is much more than what the child has anticipated, then there is a chance that the child may develop mistrust over a period of time. So you may ask a question, sir, do you think that the child can verbalize trust and mistrust between birth to 18 months? No. So the trust and mistrust are the consequences of what happens when the child is um, not addressed to the problem he or she has faced during that particular time period. So the caregivers or the parents or the people who are actually um, guarding that particular child plays an important role in in managing the trust versus mistrust aspects of the personality. So that is how we have to understand each and every stage. So 18 months to 3 years, autonomy versus shame or doubt. The child learns what he or she can and cannot control and develops a sense of free will. So if the child is not allowed to experience what he is supposed to do in his environment or ecosystem, but if the child is pampered with the people around him and not given the requisite amount of autonomy for the child to develop his or her abilities, then the child may develop a stage where he or she may not be in a position to basically be initiative, uh, may lack leadership qualities, and the self-esteem levels or self-efficacy levels may come down drastically. So it is only because of the shame or doubt the child has possessed during 18 months to 3 years that have developed over a period of time as somebody with no leadership skills, somebody who does not take initiative, somebody who is always uncertain, somebody who is always guilty, something like that. So there are chances that these kind of things have to be understood uh, during the experiences of the child between 18 months to 3 years. Initiative versus guilt. The child learns to be independent by exploring, manipulating, and taking action. Industry versus inferiority. Identity versus role confusion. So 12 to 18 years is very important. That is a place where I am more focused. The adolescents, the people who are actually the teenagers, is a place where I generally try to address a lot of issues in my everyday life. Intimacy versus isolation, generativity versus stagnation, ego integrity versus despair. Generativity versus stagnation, what do you mean by that? 40 to 65 years. Generativity implies that the healthy individual always try to do actions or contemplate actions which have lasting effect, in the sense that the actions of the individual, healthy individual, should outlast than him, in the sense that whatever he does it to ensure that it is um, it is supporting the cause of people next to him. Next generations will also basically enjoy the fruits of what he has done or she has done. So against to the stagnation, that he could not basically do something for the future generation. Ego integrity versus display. So so this is Eric Erickson's framework for development. I request everybody to go through it, and I can relate a lot of examples through this Eric Erickson framework for development. Any questions here? Eric Erickson's framework for development. If no questions, I'll just try to take a
So I
case.
have a question.
Yeah.
So during this 40 to 65, you just mentioned generativity versus stagnation.
Yeah.
So if generativity means that they're trying to build a lasting, something lasting, or like a legacy for the next generation, do you think stagnation would be like they're focused more on themselves and uh, cursing their past, or cursing their present, or things like that?
So when you see this generativity versus stagnation, the information that is mentioned clearly is the person develops an interest in guiding the development of the next generation, often by becoming a parent. If at all it is not done, so the person is stagnant, is void of anything. There is emptiness in him, that he has done everything to himself, but it cannot basically continue after him.
Oh,
Because by the end of the day, people should be there in order to basically take it forward. The legacy has to be taken forward. Nowadays, I can basically relate it to the recent examples that I'm seeing in everyday life. With the due respects to all the people who are actually building their careers. That is the reason I mentioned this particular disclaimer. If husband and wife are both career oriented, they should be career oriented. I accept and I respect that. But to what extent both of them should be career oriented? At the cost of leaving their children to their destiny, or to the extent where it is necessary for the home to basically progress and see that the children are also basically going ahead in their lives qualitatively and quantitatively successfully. I'll just tell you, if both husband and wife are actually working 8 hours, morning 9 to evening 5, 9 to evening 5, or at late hours, they're coming back. Now, where is this particular child and what kind of identity he has, what kind of relationship he is actually groomed in the home, and what is he left to? So, if both the husband and wife are becoming employees of the month, now now, what is going to happen to the fate of the child? So we do not have any answers right now. The reason is we are seeing all these things in real time mode. So, but if we can realize the fact that there is a life after you and me, and if at all we both see that particular life um, in the same distance, in the same intents, then probably we'll give less importance to us and more importance to the life in front of us. So then we will try to care about what he or she requires. And we'll also care about how he has to basically or she has to develop and how this particular legacy can be nourished over a period of time. Otherwise, if at all we are caring for ourselves, then it is more to do with individualistic way of life, individualistic thinking, and it is more to do with the Western culture. once again. So it has its own advantages. There are no problems at all. Let's take an example in West. Let's take an example USA. After 9th standard or 10th standard, people are left to their own careers. Nobody cares for their careers. So that is the reason there is more of entrepreneurial mindset in West than in East. In East, we because of 600 years of invasion on India, it is very difficult to have that kind of entrepreneurial mindset among us. We are habituated to basically work under something like that. So we are risk aversive. So we tend to do a lot of hard work. So they're all my feelings, personal feelings, and nothing to do with the academic activity that we are all studying. So so West has those important ingredients of individualistic. They have good advantages of being individualistic also, but for what reasons, at what cost? So where is this human ingredient? Where is this human principle? Where is humanity as such? So by the end of the day, if we are creating artificial intelligence to ensure that no human intelligence need not work anywhere, so what happens? I do not want to go to a park where I see all robots playing, and then I'm in the midst of the robot, and all the robots are actually watching me as somebody who is coming from an alien world. So, what is it all about? What are we trying to do? What kind of creative we are trying to create? So, in that way, we have to think at one point of time. So, only then probably there is some hope for the society to survive. What got my point, madam?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. Okay, now with Erik Erikson's theory of psychosocial development, I am bringing a case to you. As a psychologist, I generally address a lot of mental health issues of different people in the society. I did not name here, so hence the confidentiality is protected. So I request everybody to go through this particular paragraph. This is a verbatim that was shared to me by one of the subjects through WhatsApp. And you can understand the kind of noise in the mind of the student. I hope everybody is reading it, right?
Yes, yes, sir.
Have you read it, everybody?
Yes.
Done? This is a very complex message that I have received. And okay, I'll take to the next slide. Following images, viewers' discretion is required. I request people's reservation to see, not to see. These are the images of that particular subject, 19-year male studying engineering at institution of national importance. And you can see at what time he has sent a WhatsApp message to me at 10:50. Got it? Okay. Now, I will stop the screen and then I will open it for a discussion. And hope you have actually read that particular passage that was shared to me. Uh, and I want you to basically go through this Erik Erickson's theory of psychosocial development, personality development, and let me know. Now the subject is 19-year-old. Okay, from stage or birth to 18 months to 65 to death. In which area he faced the challenge and um, where was he stuck? We have gone through that particular message that was shared to me. So can you please let me know what are the areas, what are the stages where he had that issue? Can you try to probe? Up to here, identity versus role confusion only. Where do you think the problem would have been? In which stage?
Identity versus role confusion, sir.
Identity versus role confusion. Can you please elaborate? So, do you mean to say that the earlier stages are good enough? Trust versus mistrust, autonomy versus shame, doubt, initiative versus guilt, industry versus inferiority. All these things are okay, except the fact that identity versus role confusion is there. Go through this particular case once again.
So
Just
I
read
think
the.
the trust versus mistrust, there also something is
So, can you
lacking.
please take those passages where the trust versus mistrust is there? Can you relate some of the lines to Erik Erickson's theory?
Yes, sir.
I just had to say this to gain a satisfaction that someone I know is actually understanding me. Can you go back to this? Understanding me. So, where is this understanding? The child develops a feeling of trust in his or her caregivers. Understanding
Yes,
comes from trust.
yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So, can we relate that particular sentence to this? So
Yes.
when this particular subject comes to us and when he's trying to share this kind of discourse to us, as a psychology student, immediately we can relate to Erik Erickson's framework for development and understand the challenge that he has faced between birth to 18 months. So, in my interaction with him, can I basically take his interaction to his childhood experiences?
Yes.
Very good. Now you are coming to the point. So, when we say we are a counselor to counseling people, I'm not saying that after MSc psychology you are all equipped in order to counsel the people. No, absolutely not. MSc psychology will not basically help you to counsel people. MSc psychology is a qualification that you have gained. So now you need to basically have enough of experience, work experience. So if you want to do some clinical counseling, then you have to basically take up psychiatry, like courses that are related to psychiatry, and then you have to register yourself to RCI, Rehabilitation Council of India, and then you can start your practicing. But if at all you are guiding the student for non-clinical issues, then this is sufficient. But you need to have a lot of experience in understanding the problem, understanding the challenges, and with your exposure and experience with many case examples, case studies, probably you can basically direct the student or direct the person in the most proper manner. You getting my point?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear some noise. Can somebody disable their mute their audios? Yeah. Okay. So In this discourse, it is mentioned here, someone I know is actually understanding me. Unfortunately, what happened is this statement is not intended to the subject's parents, but it is intended to me, to the counselor. I just had to say this to gain a satisfaction that someone I know is actually understanding me. So he has written this particular message to me. So, which means that at his home, there is no one who basically understands him or her. This is an issue. Second, I've been suffering with severe acidity problems, insomnia, and being unable to concentrate on studies as a consequence for the past 1 week. So there are some issues that are more related to biological issues. So that needs medical, understanding of it. So let us not be worried about certain things which are out of our control. But what is in our control, let us basically focus on that. And because of those issues that he has, physical issues that he is facing, he is unable to concentrate on studies. And for how many weeks? For the past 1 week. And he has analyzed literally everything, and I have stopped analyzing because it's causing me so much distress. So if we can relate this, so it is saying that initiative versus guilt. So he has developed what is this called as exploring, manipulating, and taking action through this particular discourse. I have analyzed literally everything and I have stopped analyzing. So I have analyzed in the sense that he knows how to basically read, he knows how to understand, he knows how to analyze. I'm not judging whether his analysis is correct or not. I'm not judging. Let us not judge. As a counselor or as a psychologist, never judge any person. Just try to take the facts what he speaks and then try to see whether there is rationality that is expressed through him or not. You should only be concerned about whether his thoughts are rational or not, rather than basically come out with a perception about his personality. So let us not judge anybody. Let us try to see what he speaks, whether they are rational or irrational. That exact solution has an external element, understanding and support of others. So understanding and support of others. Whether is he getting the understanding and support of others? Again, birth to 18 months, the child develops a feeling of trust in his or her caregivers. No, I don't think so. So I put so much energy, effort in improving myself to better manage my stress and understand others. See, I put so much energy, effort in improving myself to better manage. Initiative versus skill. So 3 to 6 years, the child has has the requisite skills that he could develop. So he has requisite competence in order to develop in that particular stage. But unfortunately, the stage where he's supposed to basically get the proper information or proper care, proper guidance, he could not get it. But certain needs like feeling of safety, security, intimate, close relationship, rest, some others seem to not be in my control. So I have tried to express and ask for support, but my close friend seems to have other priorities and as a consequence have ignored me. You remember I was mentioning to you the fact that in a classroom, in the beginning of my session, I was mentioning to you that in a class of 60 students, there might be 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 vulnerable students. Remaining all could be healthy, perceived to be healthy. It is the duty of all the people who are healthy to take care of the people who are vulnerable. Nobody will generally come to you to say that I'm unhealthy or my mood is bad, so just I want to speak to you. It is very difficult. Very rare conditions we generally get to find people who initiate and then come to people to ask for help. It is very difficult. So hence it is the responsibility of the society, it is the responsibility of the people to basically understand the other people in the way they are in their own conditions. So that is the reason, as psychologists, when we are trying to guide people, we should not only try to resolve the mental health issues of the people who are um, mentally sick, but it is also essential that we address all the healthy students also, healthy people also. Um, the ones who are ready to emotionally support me are unfortunately the ones who don't make me comfortable enough to open up. I opened up to my parents and it only backfired. This happened a while back. I think you got the point. So when the child is expecting some kind of support from the family members and if at all he's not getting it, then how do we basically take it up? Now, there are two ways of looking at the issue. The one is, sir, this is a discourse or this is a narration from the student. Maybe if at all we try to hear or listen from the parent, he may have a different narration about this particular guy. Probably he's sugarcoating about himself and then he's trying to blame the buck on the uh, blame it on the parents. So hence we need to basically see or listen from the point of view of the parents also. See here, you are not like an umpire in order to see the facts and say who is right, who is wrong. By the end of the day, your concern is to ensure that who is ultimately sick now. Are the parents healthy? Is the child healthy? Who has actually come to your help? Did the child came to your help or did the parent come to your help? The child has come to your help, seeking help from you. You need to really understand genuinely whether the student has an issue that is hindering his day-to-day activities. In what ways it is impacting his day-to-day activities or impacting his thought processes, impacting his behaviors, impacting his social, physical, cultural, spiritual endeavors. So if at all we genuinely understand that the student has these issues and he requires our support, we need to basically understand it from the point of view of the student and see that he is getting the necessary support that he is expecting. But again, getting support is once again, as per him, is external in nature. Now we cannot basically take a class to his parents that this is what your student, this is what your child is expecting from you, so please give it what he is expecting. But because we are the students of psychology, when we are having an interaction with the child or with the student, with the subject, then uh, we have to talk to him in such a way that the student is capable enough to basically develop a sense of trust in himself first and then seek alternatives of positioning himself in the most unfavorable conditions. So we should not help people, but we should basically help people help themselves. That is the essence of counseling the subjects. To what extent you are able to build confidence in the individual by different techniques that can be administered on the subject in such a way that the student or the subject is able to depend on himself or herself for the progress of his life. That is what we are supposed to do. It is not because today, if at all we are helping somebody, and if the subject is dependent on us, tomorrow again, if at all he has an issue, he will depend on us. Day after tomorrow, he will depend on us. The goal is not to basically hack him for each and every challenge he faces and ask him to come to us. But the goal is to see that we are developing enough competencies in the individual so that he is confined to himself to explore how he can help himself. To that stage, we are supposed to basically create an environment. For that, we need people's, what is this called as understanding of the situation. That is how, we have to take it up. Okay. Here, this is another case over here. Please kindly check. Engineering student kills mother for not letting him play online games in Vizag. Speaking to TOI, Inspector Malkapram is a third year BTech student of a private engineering college and he is allegedly suffering from bipolar disorder, mental illness that causes clear shifts in a person's mood, energy, activity levels, and concentration. And the reason why he killed his mother is because the mother did not let him play online games in Vizag. So there are a lot of causes for this: genetics, and leading to violence, relationship breakdown, bereavement, and sleep disruption, drug and alcohol. So genetics, we may not be having any control of it uh, uh, unless otherwise there are some lifestyle issues. Let's take an example. If we are trying to imbibe certain things because of our parents, then it's okay. We have very less control of it. The hereditary factors, we have very less control of it. We have to manage it. We have to struggle. We have to basically cope with it. But let's take an example. As I'm growing, if I'm trying to take some food which is not good for my brain, for my body, then that may act as a trigger for the next generation issues also. So my lifestyle cannot be the basis for my next generation's psychological issues. That is the reason, if at all you find people saying that um, there is something called as autism that is more prevalent nowadays. And the research says that majority of the autism cases are because of the lifestyle of the parents. So now, do you think that we can exercise control on our lifestyle because it has an impact on the next generation? Yes, it has. So that is the reason we need to see to what extent we can care for our own physical health, because it has a lasting impact on our next generation. So engineering student kills mother for not letting him play online games in Vizag. So this is how it is. Can somebody mention, if I go back to this Eric Erickson's uh, stages of psychosocial development, can you relate to what?
Yes. So I think the trust versus mistrust, it comes first.
After that,
So after that, maybe this initiative versus guilt. The
no,
child learns.
you see, you missed one point. Autonomy versus shame doubt. The child learns what he or she can and cannot control and develops a sense of free will. So this self-control is very, very important. If you forget about this self-control, if the self-control aspect is not presented or not exposed to the child during the early stages of development, it is very difficult. My request to all of you, those who are listening keenly, is to follow an experiment given by Walter Mischel, Walter Mischel, Mischel, I guess. Walter Mischel. It is called as Walter Mischel is a social scientist. He wants to basically understand why some people fail or why some people are successful in their lives. So for that, he has conducted a very good experiment. It is called as marshmallow experiment. It is called as marshmallow experiment. In fact, what you can do is in YouTube also this marshmallow experiment is there, and Walter Mischel has also given a very good voice for his experiment also. So I just give you a brief idea about this marshmallow experiment. It says that you know what marshmallow experiment is. I told you the essence of it. Walter Mischel wants to really understand why some people in their lives are successful, why some people in their lives are not successful. For that, he came out with an experiment. The experiment is like this. In one enclosed room, he brought a table and a chair for a child to sit. On the table, he has kept a small, what is this called as, plate. On the plate, he has kept a marshmallow, which is called as a chocolate. He called one small child and nobody else in that particular room. He called that particular child and he said, "You have this particular chocolate, I don't have any problem. But if you wait till 20 minutes and you eat this particular chocolate, then you will get additional chocolate. So the condition is, I have a chocolate, I'm placing it here. But if you wait till I come back, after 20 minutes, if I come back, I'll give you 2 chocolates. But before I came back, if you are eating this chocolate, then you will not get that additional chocolate." So what he has done is he has called all the children individually, and he started recording their experience, behaviors in this closed environment. So there are CC cameras, video graphed about their behaviors. So in those videography, it was clearly indicating that some of the children were gratified to have that particular chocolate immediately soon after the experimental left. So because they are unable to resist the temptation, so they immediately took it and then they have eaten it. Somebody started fiddling with that particular chocolate for some time and then they have left it. And they have little bit taste also they have done it. But some of them they have waited till the experimenter came back after 20 minutes. So now by the end of this particular, what is this called as famous experiment by Walter Mischel, what he has done is he came to an understanding that out of 20 or 30 whom he has experimented, there are hardly 20 percentage of people who were able to wait till the experimenter came back. Only 20 percentage of the people. Remaining 80 percentage of the people, they could not wait. They were easily gratified with the sensory pleasures, and then they took the chocolate immediately soon after the experimenter left. So what Walter Mischel did was a longitudinal study. In research methodology, you'll get this concept called as longitudinal study, wherein the study will take over a period of time, is conducted over a period of time. So he started observing the children from the age that this experiment was conducted till they became older in their lives. So in the sense that probably after 40 years, 35 to 40 years, what these children are doing in their lives. This is what he tried to understand. It's a big longitudinal study. So he tried to trace all these kids in their lives by getting to know their coordinates, addresses, contact details, and this. And he started visiting their homes, their offices, and he started observing their behaviors, patterns, and their lifestyles, and all that. To his surprise, he found that the kids who waited for next 20 minutes for the experimenter to return back, they are leading a meaningful life. They are leading a meaningful life. But unfortunately, the people who are not, what is this called as, they did not resist the patience, resist the temptation. What happened was that they were leading an indisciplined life. They have to, their marriages are broken. They have lost many jobs. They are hopping different jobs. Whereas the people who have controlled their, what is this called as temptations, they are leading a meaningful life. They're having a stable job. They're having an organized life. They're having a sustainable relationship with their spouses. So this is what. So now, Walter Mischel came to an understanding that the delayed gratification is the basis for the success of an individual, the delayed gratification. So, the more a person is delaying the gratification or delaying the sensory pleasures, the chances are high that the student can have control over his options or over his environment. So, if you can observe this particular, what is this called as case that I have mentioned to you, that is mentioned to you here. Engineering student kills mother for not letting him play online games in Vizag. So, if you observe the autonomy versus shame down, the child learns what he or she can and cannot control and develops a sense of free will. So if the student, if the child is able to basically understand the importance of self-control and delay the gratification at that point of time, there are chances that the child would have actually managed his gratifications and would not yield into such kind of violence at later stages of life. Now, a question comes, sir. Do you think that whatever consequences we are seeing right now can be attributed to birth to 18 months, 18 to 3 years, 3 to 6 years? At that point of time, who knows, which parent knows or which child knows that this small activity by me has a big negative impact in the rest of the life? We do not know. You see, as psychologists, lifespan psychologists, our duty is to basically understand the life not in general, but life in specific at each and every stage of life and see whether the child in that particular stage of life has basically gained enough competence to graduate from that particular stage and then move to another particular stage. So it is more of stage orientation. Each and every stage is very, very critical. And I'm not saying that if something goes wrong, do we immediately blame it on the past and say that nothing can be done? No. It is important that if something has gone back in his life, something wrong has happened in his uh, life, long back in his childhood, can nothing be done? Yes, it can be done. There are a lot of things that can be corrected, not just from the point of view of the person who is in front of us, but if we are unable to correct the person who is in front of us, but the system can be corrected through a lot of interventions. It is important that we stop caring for individuals, but we start caring for systems. The more we care for the system, the individuals in the system will be more benefited. If we start caring for individuals in the individual, they may leave the system to vulnerability. So that is the reason we want right people uh, to be in the right places so that the right people can basically create great impact on people's lives. That is the reason when we are actually trying to counsel students for different careers also, the career making or career design cannot be based on one individual's ego. It has to be very, very purposeful. It has to be very, very society specific. It has to be very, very country specific. It has to be meaningful so that it can create some impact in people's lives. Let's take an example. I am wealthily rich, and
Excuse me,
my
sir.
son, yeah.
So I don't get that. I mean, individual and the system. So when you're talking about system, what does it? I mean, imply? I did not get it.
See, when I'm talking about the system, one person has suffered like this. More number of people should not suffer. If we are caring for each and every individual, then it will be a long working activity for us in order to basically address all people's issues. So we'll only be involved in and correcting the issues. But when will we start preventing it? So prevention can only be possible if at all we are trying to intervene, working on the system rather than in individuals. You're getting my point. Let's take an example. I was just trying to come to the same point you have asked the question. I have taken care of my career. Let's take an example. I'm a software engineer. I'm earning at least 10 lakhs per month. Let's take an example. I'm living in a posh apartment with wonderful automobile things in front of my home. My wife is also working in a big company. She's also earning wonderful salary and all that. We have all the luxuries of food. But my son or daughter has this autism. So I may be a winner at organization. When I go back home, if I'm unable to basically communicate freely with my children, so where did I win? So probably with my intelligence, I have created the best in the organization. But uh, but there might be a lot of people who are actually suffering with autism. With my abilities or intelligence or the money that I have gained over a period of time, can I create a system wherein all these autism people are also basically understood in their own ecosystem, in their own nature, and how we can basically restore normalcy to these people in the borderline of autism? So, how many people are actually thinking in order to build a system in order to create normalcy? Just because I am rich, I am basically putting that, but putting my son or daughter into a therapy, and soon realizing that the therapy is working, and so I am very happy. But what about the scores of people who cannot afford the cost of therapy, and they are more vulnerable to the after effects of autism? So now it is essential that we need to address the problem not in specifics but in general. So that is the reason I'm saying that in order to basically prevent things to happen, it is essential that education is required to build systems. So in in designing careers also, uh, even though very less number of people are in fact the less number of people are required in order to do good things in the society. We don't require more number of good people in the society to do more good things. We require only less number of people to create more impact to the society for greater good. So if we have these kind of less people to devote their actions on some important aspects of a society, to some important aspects of the nation, our nation or society will be a beautiful place to live in. But if we are trying to basically direct the children's competence or abilities only in one direction and leave the society, leave the country to its destiny, then who is going to basically survive in this particular society? How do we survive in the society? The people who will survive in the society are the people who are very rich. So the rich are only hardly 18 to 20%. So 80% of the people, where will they go? So do we call it a society? Do we call it a country wherein we have only people who can afford richness? So that is the reason the parents or the institutional heads or the interventionists like us basically should really try to address the system rather than the people.
So here I have one more question. So can I ask?
Please, ma'am. If I
So
can, I'll definitely. Otherwise, I'll listen from you.
so so when we see this Eric Erickson's framework for development, sir, so when a child is born, so that is the time when the parents are also focusing on their career. So if at all it happens that the few years, first maybe 10 years, the child was ignored or he did not receive what he had to receive. So is there a way in which, it can be, you know, I mean, it can be reversed, sir?
See, whatever theory that you have actually witnessed, the points that the stages of development as well as the challenges that were mentioned to each and every stage, they are very indicative in nature, but not that need not be seen as per se. So they are indicating it. So between 0 to 1 year or 0 to 2 years, if the child did not receive the kind of attention, the kind of care she requires or she deserves or he deserves, it is essential that we understand the gap and see how it can be compensated as soon as possible or at the earliest or by ways in which we can basically compensate it. So let's take an example. If both people in a home are basically working, so I'm not saying the parent has to be there in order to care for the child, but if at all it is a parent, it would be good. But in some cases where two people have to work in order to sustain the family life, then definitely both the parents have to work. And the child is actually put under the care of grandparents. But if the parents believe that we don't require any kind of financial assistance because we are well off, but still we are taking care of our own careers, at that point of time there is an option for us to take care of the child first of all. But in order to build our career and in order to come out with an excuses, lame excuses saying that if at all I be in the home, then I'll become a homemaker. There is no point in becoming a homemaker. So rest life all will be a homemaker thing only for me. So with that attitude, probably what are we trying to build? So in those cases, in those situations where both the parents are essential to work, then the caretaker can be grandparents. Grandparents, it is essential that they take it, they care for the child, care for the granddaughter in such a way that the parent is actually taking care of the grandchild. For the what is this called as child to perceive it in a healthy manner, the child should be nurtured, fostered in a healthy environment. Who is doing it? No issues at all. Whether the parent is doing, grandparent is doing, no issues at all. But till the time they get into consciousness, when they understand who is what in the family, at least somebody has to take care. By the time the child gets consciousness about who is she in relation to others, the child should be taken care in the way it is expected of him or her. Otherwise, what happens is Everybody will say, okay, fine, sir, somebody has to take care, so I'll leave my parents to old age homes. Over there, somebody will take care. You said that somebody has to take care. So old age homes, I'm dropping them. So the same cycle will continue. Each and every child will become a parent and they will basically deposit their parents in old age homes. The goal is not that. That is the reason I put a clause. The clause is when the child is conscious about himself in relation with others at home, till that time the child is not conscious if somebody else can take care. But if the child is conscious, then she should know or he should know what is my relation with others, who is related to me, who is not related to me, who is actually influencing me, who is protecting me, who is nurturing me, who is caring me, why should they care me, why they should not care me. All these things they should know. Only then relationships basically have some meaning in it.
So thank you, sir, for answering this.
Yeah. We go to the next point. You see this slide? More than 33,000 teen pregnancies reported in Karnataka over the last 3 years. Nagarna Gowda, the chairman of Karnataka State Commission for Protection of Child Rights, emphasized the role of social media in exposing teenagers to inappropriate content, leading to risky behaviors early in their lives. Early in their lives. Exposing teenagers to inappropriate content. We are talking about lifespan development. And teenagers, you can understand, late 11 years to late 19 years. 11 to 19 years or 12 to 19 years, 13 to 19 years, whatever it is. He said teenagers are influenced often by what they see online, leading to impulsive decisions and early relationships. Impulsive decisions and early relationships, which can result in unintended pregnancies. Go back to Eric Erikson. Eric Erikson. So the pregnancies are more here, between 12 to 18 years. So where did they go wrong? The adolescence develops a well-defined and positive sense of self in relationship to others. That is gone. The student is not able to recognize in what way they are supposed to basically have a relationship with others. That is not well defined to them, or it was not educated to them by their parents, because there is nobody in the home to address those issues. Everybody is busy with respect to their careers. The child learns to do things well or correctly according to standards set by others, particularly in school. Now you see what happens, what is happening in the society. The children are unable to control the parents are unable to control the children because initially there is a lot of pestering. Initially there is a lot of pestering. I'm in a meeting. Initially there is a lot of pestering. Now they are saying that because we cannot control, the onus is on the school or the education institution. Now you tell me, if at all in the school or in education institution, if somebody punishes, again we are actually going to the rescue of the student and saying that, how can you punish? We are actually paying so much of fees. Now, where should the correction happen? I'm not saying that correction should happen through punishment only. But if at all we try to make the student understand what is this reward, what is this punishment, and how a student or a child can basically avoid punishment and go for reward, the advantages of it, disadvantages of it, all these things will never happen. So it is easy for us to basically blame on somebody else than take a personal responsibility on our own children. What we cannot do, how do we expect somebody else to do for us? This is the basic preposition to which we are supposed to address. Teenagers are influenced often by what they see online. I mentioned to you law of gratification. If you delay the gratification, how? So something called as mindfulness. So there is a lot of issue with respect to anxiety also, attention deficit hyperactivity disorders. Sir, can we control? How do we control? The people who are in Silicon Valley who are actually designing tech gadgets to the world. So what they are trying to do to their children, and what are we trying to do to our children? Silicon Valley parents are raising their kids tech free, and it should be a red flag. Now, they are not stopping their children to use the mobile phones. In fact, they have never introduced mobile phone to their children. Here, each and every member in the family is actually working with mobile phones. In the West, there is no electronic gadget that was actually witnessed by a child. I'm talking about Silicon Valley parents. When the child is trying to be conscious to himself or herself, he or she has not seen any kind of electronic gadget. The exposure or the environment in the home is to do with psychomotor movements. Anything to do with psychomotor. Psychomotor means something that is more related to body and mind. So he or she is exposed or experiencing anything that is to be done with body and hand movements, body and body movement, mind and body movements. That exposure we have not given, and the legacy is continuing. So the four identity statuses, I'm just going to another important concept in lifespan development, which is useful for all of you in examinations, is the four identity statuses by James Marcia. I brought this issue because if you see here, Eric Erickson's theory of development, framework for development, there is a word here at one stage, which is in the stage 12 to 18 years, there is a challenge called as identity versus role confusion. The adolescent develops a well-defined and positive sense of self in relation to others. Now you can ask me this question, sir, why some people are able to take some decisions uh, freely, and why people are unable to take decisions freely? They are unable to take decisions because they do not have identity. Now, what do you mean by identity? Identity is a conglomeration of the values that I have, the principles that I have, and how I am managing myself with those values and principles. So, James Marcia has come out with the four stages of identity statuses that people undergo. One is the foreclosure, second one is identity diffusion, moratorium, identity achievement. Very simple to understand, easy to understand. Foreclosure, the child is a commitment is made without exploring alternatives based on parental ideas and beliefs that are accepted without question. In the when we are child, we used to accept each and every idea as it is, as a rule, as a thumb rule. So we used to follow it. You're able to understand? So the next stage is identity diffusion. Neither explore nor make commitments. May become socially isolated and withdraw. So what happens is we are neither exploring nor making any commitment in identity diffusion. In moratorium, in the midst of a crisis, but whose commitments are either absent or are only vaguely defined, characterized by the active exploration of alternatives. In moratorium, the commitment is very less, whereas the alternatives are more. Identity achievement is what James Marcia is suggesting everyone to have. Experienced a crisis, undergone identity explorations, and made commitments from diffusion through moratorium to identity achievement. So, Kohlberg theory of moral development, you see this case. This is also important from the point of view of your academics. There is a case by Kohlberg. He says through this case, we can understand the moral development of an individual. So the case is read like this. He steals the drug. In this scenario, a woman has cancer and her doctors believe only one drug might save her. This drug had been discovered by a local pharmacist and he was able to make it for 200 per dose and sell it for 2000 per dose. The woman's husband Haynes could only raise 1000 to buy the drug. He tried to negotiate with the pharmacist for a lower price or to be extended, ready to pay for it over time, but the pharmacist refused to sell it for any less or to accept partial payments. Rebuff. Haynes instead broke into the pharmacy and stole the drug to save his wife. Goldberg asked, should the husband have done that? This is an ethical, moral dilemma. Because he's unable to pay for the price of the dose, so Heinz has stolen it. Now Goldberg is saying, should the husband have done that? So now stages of moral development is like this. Now he says, Kohlberg says that there are three stages of, three levels of moral development. One is pre-conventional, which has two stages. Conventional morality, which has two stages, and post-conventional morality, two stages. Now, according to this particular, what is this called as case by Haynes, now any of you can basically answer to which stage does he belong to. Does he belong to pre-conventional morality, conventional morality, or post-conventional morality? If we have to answer the case. Obedience and punishment stage to individualism and exchange. So, according to many people, the suggestion to Kohlberg is Heinz can basically focus immediately on resolving his wife's health issue. So, for that, he can steal, there is nothing wrong in it. Because he has to take care of he has to care only for his individualistic issues. Because he tried, but he could not. So, because the vendor is selling at a lot of profit, which is out of his reach, he can sell it. He can basically steal it. That is okay. That is from the point of view of the individual. But let us take an example.
Share the screen, sir. Can you share the screen?
Yeah, I have already shared the screen.
It's not visible, sir.
No, sir.
I'm
Now
sorry.
it's not visible.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sir,
Yes, sir.
already 5 o'clock nearby.
Only 5 minutes. Only 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Please conclude by 5 o'clock, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. 5 minutes. Yeah. Okay. Can you see the screen now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
See, Kohlberg's theory of moral development. I think you can read the case very quickly in 20 to 25 seconds. I'm sorry, I do not know that I did not share.
Yes, sir. This is done.
Yeah. So there are 6 stages: obedience and punishments. Stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, stage 5, and stage 6. So Kohlberg says that each and every person has to basically move from stage 1 to stage 6. But there is a lot of criticism from his stage, because I'm just trying to cut it short because of lack of time. Some people say that the individual has to basically be individualistic, because if at all it doesn't, if the other person is actually selling in what is this called as high profit rate, he may not be able to basically justify his own personal needs, so he can steal. So if every individual in the society thinks in these lines, what will become to the society? You can ask another question. So if every individual in the society thinks of making some things for profit, what will happen to the society? So both sides, individuals are responsible. Understand that. So now, should the individual think about himself or individual because he's part of the society? Should he think about group or society in general? Because the individual is also part of the society. So subordination of individuals to organization goals. Henry Fayer's 14 points. Something is part of that. So that is the reason, if you see from stage 1 to stage 6, universal principles, what people say in general, what is required of them, what should people do, what people should not do. That is what is required. So, dear learners, I think the more we continue like this, there are a lot of things in lifespan development which requires your attention to each and every point. There are few concepts which are more anatomical in nature. They talk about the growth aspects of individual personality development, but I would request you to basically go through the qualitative aspect of lifespan development, because that is where we find many things that are related to our everyday life. So lifespan development should be seen from the point of view of social psychology. Only then probably we'll have better understanding of life around us. But if at all we see anatomically, then we will only witness things as they are. What time the child will grow, at what different stages. The child is actually measured in terms of weight, in terms of height. in terms of organ development, in terms of maturity, puberty, and all that. So let us not only see from that point of view, they are also very important, but in what way lifespan psychology is essentially oriented to social psychology. If at all you see from that perspective, there are a lot of interventions that we all can basically make it in order to make a meaningful life. So there are many slides, but with less time, I am unable to address all these. But nevertheless, I am available via email. You can mail your queries to me by taking my email address. What I'll do is I will mention my email in the last uh, slide. You can, I think you can see my email address.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is my email address. You can put queries to this particular email address. I can answer to those queries, and if needed be, probably we can have a discussion on the concepts that you require more understanding. I hope you'll all appreciate the importance of these learning sessions. They are only doubt clarifying sessions and not sessions to complete the syllabus. So IGNOU is very clear about why these counseling sessions are made, intended. So I request you to go through the syllabus and understand it from the point of view of the greater understanding of why these counseling sessions are conducted.
Thank you very much,
That's
sir.
it.
Sir,
Thank you.
already we have sent few videos. Already previously conducted sessions. We are converting to YouTube. So those YouTube links already forwarded to all the learners. So previously conducted MPC-002, 3 videos are there. So already 4 hours duration videos are sent to all the learners. So for other clarification, you go through those YouTube links, or otherwise you can go through the other YouTube links also. If you go to the YouTube, IGNOU MPC-002. So other regional centers and headquarters and private people, they have done a lot of videos. So you can go through those videos and you can understand better way. And if you have any doubts, you can send a mail to the concerned people, or whenever you come for the practical counseling session, during that time you can clarify your doubts. So those during that time we will clarify your doubts, and we are planning to conduct the practical counseling session at the end of March or first week of April. For 3 days we are planning to conduct. So all the students have to come to Vijayawada and stay here for 3 days. Attendance is compulsory. So this is from our side. Now time is 5 o'clock. Sir, thank you very much for sparing your valuable time for 3 hours. You have given a lot of inputs to our students. So on behalf of Regional Center Vijayawada, once again I thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
So thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The session was
Tomorrow again we have MPC 004 social psychology. So exact